All right, we're going to go over how to reference data in Google Sheets. And what referencing data means is kind of pointing to where it is and bringing it in. You're usually bringing it into a formula, but we'll do it a couple different ways so that you can see how it works. There's 3 different ways to think about these references. So we group them in the first group as size and shape. So we'll talk about those first. We'll expand this part of our data. And we have 3 different sizes and shapes of references. And the first is just your traditional, just a cell reference. All you're doing is you're looking at one cell and bringing those contents back. So let's do a couple examples of that. I have sample data down here. We will ungroup that. And you see it starts in cell A28. So I just set a cell reference. That's a column and a row. So we refer to the contents of this cell as A28. And if we were to reference that from somewhere else, let's just go to a blank spot. We're going to add a column here, and we're going to say sample. Now, we'll add a column header here. We'll say sample. And let's just reference the data in A28. We're going to hit an equal sign. That tells Google Sheets, don't take what I'm typing literally, take it as an instruction in a formula. So I've hit equals, and I'm going to type A28. And you can see it's already giving me a preview of what the result's going to be. And I'll hit enter. I think that's white font. Hold on. What are the chances? There we go. The result of that cell reference is just the contents of where it was pointing. All right, so it brought in A28. So the next type of reference is a range. So instead of one cell, you get a range of cells. And the way to do that is we have the syntax here is column and row, which is a cell reference, and then the divider is a colon, and then another column and row. So let's say we want to pull in A28 through C31. Now you might think you do it like this, because inside of a formula you probably would, but it's going to give us an error, C31. Because what's happening here is Google Sheets is saying, oh, that's more than one cell. I need permission to write that into the subsequent cells because I got the data from, 9 cells. You need to trick it. And you won't have to do this if you're working inside other formulas, but to just show it like we are, you have to trick it. Put it in these curly braces, and it writes out what's in that reference. So a lot of times, let's do another example of one range. You might use the range concept when you're adding numbers together. You're just doing some sort of operation on a group of numbers. So let's do that. Let's say equals, and then we'll use the sum function, and that takes a series of numbers and adds them together. And we'll say we want C28 down to C37. So we want this group of currency. And instead of typing it out, you can click your mouse and drag, and it writes it out for you. So C28 and a colon and C37. So that's taking a range and feeding it into a formula. Hit enter, and it does the math for you. Now, the third size and shape of referencing is multiple cells or multiple ranges that may not be next to each other. They could be, but they don't have to be. So how we're going to do that is we're going to, let's do that average function, and we'll do something weird. We'll just pick a couple of these. And we'll do it all with our mouse, but we're going to talk about how it's written out. So let's say we want to average 10. Then I'm going to hit a comma, so I guess it's not all with my mouse. But then I'm going to point to 5, and then I'm going to do a range also. So I'm going to drag it to get the range of B33 through B35. So the trick with these, and it's shown in what I wrote out here, is to separate the references with a comma. Not that bad, right? We'll hit equals, and that function averaged, let's double click back into it, these numbers. And there's a way to see what's being referenced. So you see the color of orange for B28, and you come down and look at B28, and that's surrounded by a dotted orange line. Okay, so that's actually really helpful when you have a larger spreadsheet and you're kind of auditing, going back and auditing the formula. You double click in it and you can see where everything's pointing. So that's the 3 sizes and shapes. Now let's move to a different concept, and this is how to modify this syntax. So just the column letter, row number. Let's modify that to do weird things with it. So let's close this off and expand the modifications. To do this, at least for the first 2, we'll just keep it as cell references. You can also do this with ranges, but we'll keep it as a reference. So we're going to, this is all relative. We'll come down here to do it because we're going to use a couple of rows. Let's do a simple reference. Well, let's go down on the same row. We're going to reference C28. And all it does is pull that number in, right? I'm not feeding it into a function, a simple reference, but this is a relative reference. And you can't tell that at first, but it's a very important foundational concept for spreadsheets that when you move these references, so copy and paste them or drag them down, they adjust based on where you move them to. So this knows it's pointing at C28. If I grab the lower right-hand corner with my mouse, see how it turned into a plus sign there? Hold it down and I drag down. I'm copying this formula down, but each time it adjusts. So it becomes C29 and then C30, etc. So that's a relative reference. It's relative to where it is. Okay, so that's kind of your default when you type them out normally, or when you just point them to them with your mouse, they're relative references. If you don't want that behavior, what you need to do is fix the reference. So you can fix the column and or fix the row. So we'll hit enter there. And when I drag this down, it doesn't adjust. So you might wonder why you'd ever want to do that. One common example is when you're taking all of these prices, and then let's say you want to increase all of them by 5%, and you don't want that to change. You type, but the 5% can change, but it all needs to reference that 1%, whatever it is. You might type the 5% at the top, and then each one of these, as it increments down, you want to multiply this row by D25, and this one, and this one. You would fix the reference to D25, all right? So that's fixed. Now mixed, fixed and mixed, that would be where you want to fix just a column or just a row. So you don't need $2 signs. This C28, that C could move, but the 28 would stay. So that would be, let's think about this. If you drag that down, the row should change. Nope, thought about that wrong. If you drag that down, the row stays the same, but if you drag it to the right, the column adjusts. And that's not a great example because that was blank. Let's go to the left. It picked up the 10 because it's looking here. But if you drag that 10 down, the row is fixed and it won't change. All right, so a lot of handy things that you can do there when you're in the weeds in a big spreadsheet and you want different behaviors. Now, something that works in Google Sheets and Excel, but it's a little bit better in Google Sheets, is what I'm calling an infinite reference. I'm going to call it cell reference, but it's more than one cell. And infinite range reference, we'll say. Mostly because I can't find what it's called because there's not a lot of documentation on it. What this is you either reference an entire column or an entire row. You can do that in Excel too, but what you can do in Sheets is start at a row and go all the way down past it, or you can start at a certain column, go all the way to the right. Let me show you what I mean. So what I wrote here, leave out a column or a row. So let's say we want to start at B28 and then just go down to the bottom of the sheet. So infinite meaning it doesn't stop if the sheet was 1,000,000 rows, it would go to 1,000,000. So we will say, and let me do these brackets so it returns the whole thing. We're going to say B28 and we're going to go all the way down to B blank. Just don't put anything there. We'll hit enter and it writes it down, and you go down and went all the way down to row 37, and it kept on going, but these are just blanks so you don't see them. So this can be handy if you think you're going to be adding data at the bottom. Let's say you wanted to sum this column, but you wanted to catch new entries. You can do it this way. We will delete that. And we talked about these different ways to modify your references. And let's talk about the last thing. And this is an interesting way to think about it, I think, but conceptually, it's the easiest way to think about them. This is the source of the reference. So where the data lives that you're pulling in. So all the ones that we've done in this example have been on the same sheet, right? So a sheet means everything on this sheet called summary. So this whole file is a spreadsheet, but within it, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sheets. Okay, so the same sheet is just what we were doing. But let's say we want to reference something on the S Corp sheet. Let's look at this and say we want to pull in the total S Corp income. What we're going to do is, as the syntax shows, we'll do a single quote and then the name of the sheet, and single quote again. You can't forget that single quote if you have a space in the worksheet name, because that lets sheets know where it starts and ends. And then an exclamation point. Why? I don't know. It just is that way. And then the column in the row. But let's do this the easier way, just by hitting the equal sign and letting sheets do it for us. So we'll go to S Corp, and let's just say we want this number 38883. Click on that, and you see Sheets has written this out. So you have the single quote, you have the name of the sheet, ending quote, exclamation point, and then the cell reference. There we go. Beautiful. Now you can combine concepts here. You could change this cell reference to a range reference, right? So you could do E8 to E9. It's going to give me an error because I need these brackets. Hold on. There we go. So we're combining another sheet, that concept, with, what do we do? Range. All right, we'll move on to the next source. So we just looked at grabbing it from another sheet. Let's grab something from a completely different file, right? Now, this is still a spreadsheet. We're not going out on the web to any web page, although you could do that, but that's a different function. We're going to use import range, which just looks at specified data in another spreadsheet. So let's put this window on the left. These are my plans for this video. Isn't that beautiful? It's just the work of a genius right there. It was going to be 2 videos and we made it into 1. Okay, I lost you. Let me keep going. We need this. This wasn't what I was looking for, but we're just going to use it anyway. We're going to put this on the right. And we are going to be referencing another file. And you do this with, this is getting sloppy. Let's keep it right here on this row. You do this with a function called import range. And what I mean by a function is it's this pre-made set of instructions for Google Sheets, and now it wants some parameters for it. So it says, hey, you want to import range? Well, you need to tell me the spreadsheet URL and the range of where it is. So one important thing to remember, and if you forget, just expand the details here. You want the spreadsheet URL, you want quotes around it. So don't forget those. That's an easy way to mess this up. We'll copy that text. We'll come back to the formula. We'll put in a quote. We will paste it. Ending quote. Now, if you're looking to clean this up, you really only need this string of text in between the D/ and before the /edit. If you really want to clean up, it works this way though. So this is the simplest. And the range string is just where you want it to look. So you'll see this familiar syntax. This is what you did to go to another sheet. It's a little bit different though. It's surrounded by quotes, and you see it doesn't have those single quotes for some reason. So just do it this way. So we're going to type in random, we're going to try to type in random space sample, explanation point, and we'll take in D2. Cross your fingers. Okay, that worked. Well, at least it gave the expected result. And what this is you need to give it permission. So even though I own both of these sheets, I have to allow access. So we'll click on allow access. It'll think about it a little bit more, and then it will finish. So import range, you can use it in a lot of flexible ways, but there's also some things to keep in mind with it. You can really slow down your computer. You can control how often it refreshes. I'm going to link to a video right now that gives you more information if you're planning on using import range. But if you're just using it in a simple way, I think you're good to go with how I just showed you. Now, the fourth and the fifth source of this for the data reference, these are a little bit different. They're pretty fun, right? They're next level. So they're going to advance your spreadsheet knowledge drastically. Yeah, if your friend is watching you use a spreadsheet, make sure you do this in front of them. It's really going to impress them. Anyway, named range is the fourth of the 5 options. And what that is you can take any range of data and you can just name it. It sounds weird, right? But let's just name this. Let's name this inventory. So what you need to do is go to data, named ranges, come over here, and we'll say inventory. There are some limitations, like I couldn't name it A1, right? Because that's already a cell reference. There's other limitations, but use something common sense. It'll probably be fine. We will click, see, I did one here before. Anyway, we'll click done. And now when we want to reference this named range, let's say, let's do it in brackets again, just to write the whole thing out. When we start typing, it's one of the options. So I just typed I in, and this automated help is trying to suggest functions. But if you go all the way down, it's suggesting the named range that I just made, and it's telling you where it is. So let's just select that. We'll hit enter, and that reference contains all of this. If you just did it with the prices, I think this is an important example because you're not always just writing out what's in the reference. Let's call this prices. You could just feed it into a function. So that's usually, I think, what you'd be using these for, usually using whatever, sum, and then price. There it is. It's showing up in the dropdown. We're going to click that, hit enter, and it's summing the prices right here. So that's how to use named ranges. I'll link to a video with more about named ranges. There's some nuance to them, so that could be an interesting view if you would like. And now we'll go over the fifth of 5, and it's a table reference. If you're watching this anywhere new 2024, it's new to Sheets. The concept has been in the spreadsheet world for a while, but it's new to Google Sheets. But without further ado, let's just go to a tab with a table. I think it's this one, yes. This data is in something that's formally called a table. And you can tell without, if you didn't change it yourself, if you just come upon one in the wild, that it will have this header row with the extra capabilities. So you'll see these drop downs where you can edit the column type. And this one, for example, has some validation where it's saying this column A can only be currency. But enough about tables. Heck, I'll even link to a video about tables if you want to watch more about that. I don't want to distract you anymore. This is in a table. Trust me. I'll show you what you can do with it. We're going to do a table reference. This is a new capability, and it's a smart type of reference where it is aware of this table and lets you do some things you couldn't do before. Let's say we want to get the average salary. So we will say average. But now we're going to point it to that column in the table, but we're not going to use a range like A2 to A, wherever the end is, because if we added something at the bottom, that range might not expand. This table reference has superpowers. So we're going to say table 1, and it pre-fills, it knows about the table. You can reference the whole table or these columns within it. So we will pick salary. We'll click on that, and you see the syntax is the name of the table, and then square brackets and the name of the column in the table. So that's coming from here. There's the name of the table. There's the name of the column. We will end it with the parentheses, hit enter, and we've just averaged the salaries. And because it's in a table, if you add something to the bottom, it will auto expand, and this formula will update. So you see we've been working with a lot of sheets here. If you want to create a navigation for the sheets, just create kind of a cover sheet or a table of contents that helps you get around. There's, in this new video, we'll go over a way to create that with links manually, or an add-on that will create it for you. I'll see you in that video. Thanks for watching.